What's up, y'all? Downtown Jay Brown. Just working on some more content. You know, in that first vlog I did there, I promised that was the first in a series, and I really want to start working on the second vlog here. So this is going to be a voiceover. Just trying to get some more content. I want to talk about my gear a little bit. I want to kind of expand a little bit on that topic. I know a lot of y'all, a lot of you guys are subscribed to me with an interest in gear, and I'll eventually get into I want to get into the details of every piece of gear I use and why I use it and what it does. But just real quick here, this is just me trying to go over the evolution of my rig. When I started out, I had nothing but that acoustic guitar that was gifted to me by my brother-in-law, and it's a Washburn acoustic electric. Plays really well. He had the action lowered on it. It plays really nice. It's a great guitar to start on. I still play it, actually. I still carry it. It's my backup. But I started with that, and that's all I had. I didn't have any gear, and I started looking into why not just invest in a little bit of gear and learn how to perform a little bit. The first piece of gear I purchased was a Boss RC1 loop station, and immediately started trying to learn how to create loops and jam along with the loops that I create and things like that. Now the RC1 is not really designed for multi-loops. It's really just designed create a loop, jam over it, maybe add a layer or two, and then there you go. But I just kept going with it, and I ended up getting pretty good with building drum beats on the guitar, creating my own drum loop, and then jamming over top of it. I had an old practice amp, an old bass. It was a Behringer bass amp that I had for years. I had that amp, and I would plug everything into that, and it would sound fairly decent. Ended up deciding to upgrade the amp to something more portable, because that Behringer was really heavy, and I wanted to be portable. That was my thing at that time. When I was first getting into this, I was busking a lot out on the streets. I wanted to be portable. I wanted to be able to set up quick, and I wanted to be able to set up and play everywhere. So I was after portability, and that Behringer wasn't very portable. So I got rid of that, and I purchased a Boss Cube Street 2. That little thing I thought was going to be the ultimate solution. At the time, I thought it's got everything I need. I'll never need anything else. It's got two inputs, one for vocal, one for guitar. It's got EQ for both. It's got guitar effects. It's got a harmonizer built in, and it's got a looper. So now I've got two loopers. But I'm not really using the one in the Cube just yet, and I'll get more into that later. It's the only piece that I'm not really using right now, because I had already figured out how to use the RC1, and I just wanted to keep using that. So now, to get the harmonizer to work how I wanted it to, I had to invest in a double foot switch, and the only way that amp I could get that to work was with a TRS cable, and then that double foot switch was the only way I could get the harmonizer for me to be able to stomp on it and turn it off and on how I wanted to. And I could have invested into a little Bluetooth adapter to plug into the Cube and then download an app on my phone, and then I could unlock more features and reconfigure some of the things, but I didn't want to do any of that. I just wanted to get to it. So I bought what I needed. I bought the double foot switch, I bought the TRS cable, plugged it in the harmonizer, and the foot switch on the right was for harmonizer, and the one on the left was assigned to vocal reverb, which I never really had a need. At that point, I didn't have a need to turn that off and on at all, so that was a pedal. It was like wasted real estate on my pedal board. It's like, I'm never hitting this. I'm never turning reverb off. I've set it how I want it, just leave it on. So that always kind of bothered me, and then having the looper there never being used, that's still kind of bothering me. So the little single foot switch connected to the RC1, that just helps build loops and add and delete layers of loops, helps turn them off and on. It's just more functionality for the RC1. If you're just practicing at your house, there's really no need for that, and you can perform without it, but it makes performing with the RC1 a lot easier to have that little foot switch. But once I added those foot switches, that gave me way more control over my current little setup, and that's what I started taking to open mics, started taking out to busk with, to start building confidence. And that worked out pretty good there for a while. I did find a couple of weird problems with that current configuration. That Boss amp also has a tuner built in, so when I would push that button to tune my guitar, it would mute the whole amp, which was my vocals. So let's say you're on stage, you finish a song, you move a capo and you're retuning, and obviously you never want to do that with your volume wide open. You want to always mute your guitar when you tune. It's just what you do. But when I would mute to tune, it was muting my vocals as well. I couldn't talk to the crowd. So that was a problem, and that started bothering me real bad. But I just rolled with it because that's what I had. It's what I used. And the next evolution in my rig was adding more rhythm. So I added a Cajon drum and a condenser mic, because that little loop station has two inputs. That way I could technically loop guitar and the little Cajon drum into the looper. That way I could build beats with that instead of building on the guitar. So that was pretty awesome. I thought I had that worked out. Started testing with it, and I realized real quick that the Boss Cube Street amp it didn't have the low end that I was after. When I bought that Cajon drum, it's a subwoofer Cajon. It's designed to mimic a snare and a kick drum of an actual drum set, and it just wasn't sounding the way I wanted it to sound through that Boss. But since that RC1 has two inputs, it also has two outputs. And if you plugged two inputs into it and only had one output, it would send both those inputs to the one output, or you could output two. I went and purchased a Bose S1 Pro because I wanted some low end for these drum beats that I was building, and I just outputted directly to that. So the Cajon had its own output. It wasn't going to the Boss at all, but it was still running through the looper. So that worked out really good, and I got really confident with that particular setup. That's when I actually started performing quite a bit, busking out on the street, and I actually played my first show with that configuration, and it worked out pretty good. But I still had some technical things that were bothering me. The looper that wasn't being used, the foot switch pedal connected to the Boss that was linked to reverb that I was never using. That always bothered me a little bit. The fact that if I showed up at a venue and had two different amps, and the way that I was configured just wasn't going to be very impressive at an actual venue. So it kept leading up to, I need to get a mixer, and I was trying to avoid having a mixer because I was just seeing if I could avoid it. I'm kind of a minimalist, and I didn't need multiple channels if I had enough channels in the looper to run everything as my mixer. But I just figured out real quick that wasn't going to work. Now, at this point too, I kind of wanted to run in-ear monitors from the Boss Cube Street. And when I would try it, whenever I would plug anything into the headphone jack in that Cube Street amp, it would mute the speaker completely. It would just completely mute it. Which I guess that's good if you're practicing in your house or something and you're just wanting to practice through your gear. You want to run through headphones to practice and be quiet. I guess that's perfect, but I was wanting to have it output the speaker and to the headphones so I could monitor it. And it wouldn't work. It would mute the amp, which at that point, I was very frustrated with it because that's not what I wanted it to do. But later on in the evolution of my rig, that turns into a feature. So I'll talk about that in a minute. So I took the in-ear monitors out, and I just went back to, I'll figure that out later. Ended up adding a mic mechanic, which has a little bit of pitch correction. I was after a little bit of pitch correction, not auto-tune. From my understanding, it's two different things. Auto-tune makes you sing in tune automatically.
We can make a song just you and me.
It's the Ellen Show. You better know. No homie, there is no other better show. So let me know or let it go. And you are all chilling at the Ellen Show.
It's not what I want. I can sing in tune. What I was after was just a little bit of pitch correction, because sometimes I'm off pitch just a little bit. I'm still in tune, but at the beginning or the end of notes, I kind of fall off pitch. So the mic mechanic has a little setting, and you can turn it pretty low to where it's just a little bit of pitch correction, just to bump you up a little bit if you need it. If you turn it up all the way, you can definitely tell that there's some correction going on. So I don't do that at all. I turn it about halfway, because I'm pretty new at singing. I've never had vocal lessons. I have no clue what I'm doing vocally. I'm just trying my best. So it helps me have more confidence if I've got a little bit of pitch correction happening. That thing offers a lot more than that too. It's got a automatic compression built into it, so it compresses your vocals. It automatically EQs your vocals. It's got an echo effect. It's got all kinds of pretty neat stuff. Really, really nice piece of gear. I'm glad I got it, and I won't perform without it. So at this point, I'm kind of itching at performing. I've got some loops that I'm wanting to maybe run, and I've got them saved on my phone, and I can plug my phone directly into the Boss and run them just straight from the Boss. I'm sorry, I can plug my phone directly to the Bose and output my loops, or I can connect it via Bluetooth, however I need to do it. I'm not a big fan of Bluetooth, so normally I would wire in, but I've got Bluetooth as an option for me. And obviously I'm going to put my phone in airplane mode. I don't want anybody texting me or calling me in a performance if my phone is linked into my rig. So yes, absolutely, we would do that in airplane mode. But and then at this point, I'm in pretty good shape, and I'm had a successful performance at a venue in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee called the Mountain Mile. They had me come down and play, and it worked out really good. But I had it in the back of my head. I knew that at some point I'm going to get in a situation where this is going to turn into a problem. If I get in with the sound man and he tries to turn my vocal up, well, in this configuration, my vocal and my guitar are in the same line. So I don't know, I knew having two separate amps and then not having a mixer was going to be a problem. I just didn't want to accept that, because I was after portability, and I didn't want to have to buy a battery pack or some sort of portable power station to run a mixer if I could avoid it. But I ended up going to an old buddy of mine, Alan Prince. He's the sound guy at a venue here in Johnson City, Tennessee called Capone's. and he's been my sound man for a long time. I've played a lot of shows there on the drums there. I know him really good and I trust him. He's one of the best sound men I've ever worked with. So I get with him and I'm like, hey, listen, here's my setup. Can you help me consolidate, reconfigure if I need to. Let me know how I can make this work. I'm really close to getting all the effects and everything I'm after and maintaining my portability and having it all just work. And he was very welcoming. He had me come down and set up on a Friday before the main event, the main show, the main bands. So I set up with him and he tried to pretend like I was going to play a show there, and he's like, and all the problems that I knew that were going to happen happened. And sure enough, he's like, you need a mixer. And I kind of knew that. I was trying to avoid that, but I took his advice. He also told me, I showed him the tuning problem, and he immediately said, get a foot switch to get a pedal tuner, stomp on it, and it'll immediately mute your guitar, but it will not mute your vocal. You need to have your vocal separate from that. So the next day I went out, got me a mixer, got a Yamaha MGs or a Yamaha something. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'll fix that in post. And just plugged everything directly into that, and then that way my vocal and my guitar and the cajon were all on separate channels, and then I have one output to the main mix. So it's looking pretty good, but I just doing this configuration, I lost all those effects and all those awesome things that Boss Cube Street 2 offered me. That bothered me, and I ran it like that for a while. I ran dry with no guitar effects and just a little bit of vocal effects from the mic mechanic, and I could EQ my guitar on the mixer, but I lost a lot of, and I started looking for harmonizer pedals and chorus pedals, and man, I've got all these effects built into this little Cube amp. If I could just find a way, and I never gave up. I kept digging at it. I spent about a week troubleshooting and trying different things, and finally I get it hooked up, and I decide that, well, I remember running headphone out of that Cube would mute it. Let me try that. And I got the adapters, and I ran headphone out of the Cube and then into a channel on the mixer. And boom, it was perfect, because running headphone out of that Cube mutes the speaker. That's what I was after. I didn't want the Cube to play out loud and then have my Bose also playing out loud. I didn't want that. Well, running headphone out, here's where at first that was a problem because it was muting the amp, but now at this point it turned into a feature. Now it mutes the amp. I get all the benefit of all those effects, and running it that way just runs it as a multi-effect pre the mixer, like right before it hits the mixer, and then it's perfect. That was it. That was the solution I needed. At that point, I'm in pretty good shape, and this is the schematic that I made.
The attached
Schematic.
Out of excitement, because I'm pretty sure I have everything worked out. And later on, I find that left pedal on that foot switch connected to now that I've got the Cube Street back, well, I've also got that pedal that I'm not using. That left pedal on that foot switch is connected to reverb for the amp. Well, I've already got reverb coming from the mic mechanic, so I set the mic mechanic reverb to like just a fairly low, average reverb setting. And then on the Cube, I crank reverb up. So now when I hit that reverb switch, it's like a different layer of reverb that I can use for a special effect. Let's say you're doing a chorus, and then you repeat the chorus again. Well, on that second time I can repeat it, I can add another layer of reverb over it, and it makes me sound like I'm fading away into a tunnel or something. It's really neat. So that turned out to be really neat to figure that out as well. So basically, in this current configuration, the only thing that I've got that I'm carrying around that I'm not using is a tuner that's built into the cube. I don't need it anymore because I've got the foot pedal tuner, and a looper that's built into the cube. I don't need that because I've got the RC1. But later on down the road, I might actually figure out how to get a pedal connected to that cube to where I can control that looper as well and have two loopers. And that's going to be something I'm going to work on next probably. But I just wanted to talk real quick about my evolution of gear. And there's other things too that I got. Obviously, I went through a couple of different vocal mics. Ended up with a Shure SM58. That's like the industry standard. Everybody recommends that. So I've got that now. The guitar upgrade, I upgraded my Washburn. I still have the Washburn. It's my backup guitar, but I've got a PRS A50 SE A50E, something like that. I can't remember the exact model. So that's my equipment right now, and so far it's been working out really good. And then my 12-string. I've got a 12-string guitar. It's a Seagull Coastline, I believe, that my father-in-law gave to me, and I really appreciate that. And that opened up a whole lot of songs that I want to do, but I'm still working on getting that integrated into the rig because I don't know. I've got a couple of options where to get that thing plugged in at. I bought a little pickup to put in it because it's just a straight acoustic, and it needed a pickup, so I can plug it in there at my tuner where I plug my other guitars in, or I could plug it in to the mixer because there's a channel open on the mixer that has EQ, or I could plug it directly into the Bose because there's an open channel on the Bose that has, it's just got bass and treble and a little bit of reverb, but it sounds really good through the Bose. That Bose S1 Pro, I highly recommend that. As a matter of fact, the next piece of gear I'm looking at is another one of those because you can run them in stereo, and I believe they connect to each other via Bluetooth. I'll have to look into that. I wouldn't do that. I would run a wire. I'd run a cable to make sure that they stay, connected and sounding good. But it would be pretty neat to have two of those, and then they'll even sit up on a stand, so I could have them up on a stand up high. Anywho, that's just a couple of things that I did not mention yesterday when I was going through my schematic. So any questions or concerns, let me know, or if you see something I can do better, absolutely hit me up in the comments and let me know. That's what this is all about, just spreading knowledge, and let's all get better at what we do, and let's all get out there and make some music, make some people happy.